Hello, everyone. My name is Will, and this is Will's Thrills, the podcast that brings horror and animation to your headsets. And welcome to episode 2 of What Are We Watching? On this spooky Sunday, we'll be talking about the 2014 horror thriller Unfriended, written by Nelson Greaves. But first, it's time for a scary summary. When Blair and her friends join a Skype call, a mysterious figure enters the chat. And as the night progresses, they'll have to decide what matters more, their lives or their lives. Listeners beware, you're in for a scare. Let's get started. So before we get into the actual movie, I kind of wanted to give a little anecdote about how I watched this movie. Because I actually saw this movie in theaters when I was not technically allowed to see it. You'll understand when I start talking about it. So basically, when I was around 14, me and my best friend at the time, his name is Andrew. I doubt he's watching this, but Andrew, if you're watching this, hey. Me and Andrew wanted to go see this movie, right? And so we buy the tickets, do all this, we're ready to go, we're pumped up, we're hyped. And my mom takes us. Now, note, my mother has my little sister too. And at the time, if it's 2014, that means my sister's like 10 at this point. Too young to be seeing a rated R movie. Which, by the way, we didn't know that Unfriended was rated R, which is crazy because I just saw the movie for this, so I could talk about it. And in seeing the movie now, I don't understand why it's rated R, but whatever. The movie was rated R and we didn't know. So we were excited, bought the tickets, and then when we got there, they straight said, nah, y'all two can't go in there by yourselves. And so we're in shock. We're like, oh God, what are we going to do? We start panicking. I'm panicking. He's talking about let's just sneak in. Now me at the time, I'm a goody two shoes. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. What if they put me in jail? Now, in hindsight, I'm like, I could have just snuck in. People sneak into movies all the time. It's not that serious. But at the time, I was like, no, my record. So I called my mother and she was like, all right, I do it. So she bought tickets, and because she couldn't drop Willow off or anything, she bought a ticket for Willow too, which I didn't know you could do that, but because she was 10, but I guess you can. We all were in the movie theater, so me and Andrew were sitting next to each other, and Ma and Willow were down there. And initially my sister was all buff. She was like, I'll be fine, I'll be okay. Man, the trailer for The Gallows came out, which is a really bad movie. Actually, I might do a video about that later, so we'll see, I don't know. But the trailer for The Gallows came on, and my sister dipped. She was like, I can't do this. I have to go, Mommy. I don't want to watch this. And so my mother and her, they left. And so we sat and watched the movie. And at the time, I thought this movie was amazing. I really did. I was like, this is revolutionary. A whole horror movie over Skype? That's crazy. And watching it now, you know what? I'll save that for when we get into the story. Now, note, when I did episode 1, I only had about 5 pages of notes. I now have 12 pages of notes. So if this video is 2 hours long, you know why. But without further ado, let's get into Unfriended. If you hear pages flipping, I have notes. Mind your business. Alright, so first things first. The movie starts off with the Universal Studios screen. Y'all know what that is. The one with the planet and it turns around and it says Universal. Why they have the nerve to have that thing glitching? Okay. So, have you ever been on FaceTime with somebody and then they'll start glitching or their face start glitching and stuff or their screen start breaking up? That's what it looked like. And I immediately was like, I don't like this. What's going on? And I've seen this movie before. Which, by the way, quick tangent. This movie had me audibly gasping. And I don't know why. Because I've seen this movie before. But I guess I only remembered the main points. But there's so many little things that happen. Okay, let me continue. So like I said, Universal glitching. Okay. So then we see someone's computer. So we're in a POV shot. So basically, we are seeing what the main character sees. Her name is Blair, by the way. And so we're looking onto her computer, which, by the way, is a Mac. And even I don't have a Mac, so she has money. And we're looking onto her computer. And the first thing we see is she's open on a page to Live Leak. Now, if you guys know what Live Leak is, you know why I said it like that. However, for those of you who don't, Live Leak is a website that tends to have a lot of really gory and intense content. I don't think it's up anymore. I'm pretty sure they shut it down, but back then, like in 2014, like the mid 2010s, there'd be a lot of like really bad stuff on there. I don't suggest you look up Live Leak at all. Don't know. A lot of that stuff, like there would be people like actually dying and they would show it on Live Leak. It's just, it was terrible. But we see that she's on Live Leak and there's a video titled Laura Barnes Suicide. And then you see the cursor of her mouse click on where it says continue, because if you've ever been on Live Leak before, you know if they're going to show a video that has like an actual death in it, there's a disclaimer at the beginning and you have to click continue to like actually watch the video. So Blair clicks continue. Note, when the video starts playing, the description of the video says, Laura Barnes committed suicide on April 12, 2013 at her high school in Fresno, California, after an embarrassing video was posted online by her classmates. And then they had the link to said embarrassing video. The video was playing, not the embarrassing one, but the suicide one. And it's literally Laura standing in like, I think she's in like her school parking lot with a gun. And she shoots herself in the neck. And you hear people in the background like telling her like, Laura, no, don't do it. Laura, no, don't do it. But like no one's really helping her, which I thought was like a nice touch, because like it shows that like people think they knew what, no, people think they would know what they do in those moments, but they really don't. And so them like being like, Laura, no, don't do it, like no, but like no one actually going up to her because she had a gun, so they're like, I don't want to turn around and shoot me. I think that was a good touch. But we see her shoot herself in the video, and then the video's paused and Blair clicks into the link of the embarrassing video, right? And the embarrassing video is titled Laura Burns Kill Yourself, from a channel that's called Laura Exposed, right? And so, now note, this video has like over 75,000 views. So, by like 2014 standards, this is like a viral video. So, plenty of people have seen it. And they start kind of going into the video. And it shows Laura and she's drunk at a party. And before we see the whole video, it gets paused. And we see that Blair is getting a phone call from her boyfriend, Mitch. And while they're on the phone, they're kind of like playing music, talking, you know, chatting, being kind of flirty or whatever. And Blair says to Mitch that she's deciding to have prom night be the night that they officially have sex for the first time. And she's a virgin, so this will be her first time. So she's deciding to, you know, do that with Mitch. And they're kind of deciding that that's what they're going to do. After that, they're kind of, you know, talking, being flirty again. And then they're interrupted by their friends calling. But of course, they ignore it at first. But then while they're still like talking dirty to each other, suddenly all of their friends pop into the chat. And they're like, oh God. And so they like run out the screen, try to hurry up and get dressed again. Now note, there's going to be a lot of points in this where Blair's in the call, but texting Mitch. So we'll get into that a little more later. Just be aware that I say that there's going to be a lot of times where she's in the call, but she's texting Mitch. So now we meet the friend group. And the friend group is Blair, Mitch, Jess, Ken, Adam, and a little later we'll meet Val, but I'll talk about Val later. So the group notices that there's like a random person in the call. So if you've ever been on like a Skype call, you know when someone doesn't have a profile picture and it's just like the little blue like silhouette of a person. That's what was there and their username was Billy227 for whatever reason. Like I said, they see this random person. No one seems to know who it is. And Adam says that he can't hang up on them, which is weird, right? So they all decide to just leave the chat, and come back in and see if the random person will leave. And so while they're gone, Mitch and Blair start texting separately. And she asks Mitch, "Oh, why did you answer the call?" And he was like, "I didn't." And so she says, "Well, I didn't do it." Weird, right? All right, stuff's getting weird. So after they talk a little back and forth, eventually Mitch stops responding. So Blair tries to FaceTime him personally, and she doesn't get an answer. And then she tries to keep texting him, and he's not responding. But then when the group calls back, Mitch is in the call with them, and the random person is still there. So Adam decides, he's like, okay, let me try and call Blair and then add everybody else in. So that way this random person can't come in. Cool. Sounds like a plan. So they do that, and while they're doing that, Mitch and Blair go back to texting each other separately. And Mitch basically says that he wasn't texting because he got a weird message from Laura's Facebook account. Now, of course, Blair's initial thought is, stop playing with me. It's not, like, no, that's not funny. And so she thinks that he's joking until she gets an email from Laura's Facebook account. And so now she's weirded out. And it says, "Hey Blair, what you watching?" Now, no, I'm immediately freaked out because I'm like, she was just watching Homegirl's suicide video and the embarrassing video. How does this Laura Barnes, whoever's texting her through her Facebook account, know that she's watching those videos? Okay. So we already know there's some paranormal, spooky, Ghostbuster stuff happening already. So I'm already tense because I'm like, all right, this spirits. I don't do spirits. So after she gets the message from Laura, she goes on to send "who is this" to the person. And note, this is also going to happen a couple times. Sometimes Blair will type a message and then delete it. But of course, because we can see her desktop, we know when she's about to say something and then when she doesn't. So keep that in mind. So basically she says, "Who is this?" Right? And then when she says that, before she responds to Laura, or whoever's pretending to be Laura, she deletes her search history of her watching the suicide video. Okay. So, something strange. Something strange. She then sends "who's doing this?" and the person doesn't respond. And then she tells Mitch that she thinks that Laura's account is being hacked, which, I mean, makes sense because if a dead girl's Facebook account started texting me, I'd immediately be like, actually, no, I'd cut my laptop off and run away. But that's just me because I don't fool with ghostesses and such. However, Blair don't do that. So Blair basically says that she thinks that Laura's account got hacked. And then when she says that to Mitch, she gets a call from Adam, and the random guy is still there. And I kind of took note of this, and this will come back later on. Adam makes like a weird remark about Blair and Mitchell's relationship because, they're together. And he says, "Oh, is that what you guys do? You guys sex now? Is that like a normal thing?" And it's like, it clearly was like, to me, it read like, oh, he's her ex. Now, they don't say that, and we'll get more into that later on, but it definitely read to me as like, oh, like, he's her ex. And like, they're cool, but like, he's not really cool with the fact that her and Mitch are dating. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got. Everyone else comes back, right? Everybody else comes back in the call. And while they're there, Mitch is sending a message to Blair saying that he doesn't think the random person is just like a glitch. And he says that today is the anniversary of Laura's death. Now I'm like, okay, this is definitely a ghost. This is definitely ooky spooky. The anniversary of her death, and you're sitting there watching her suicide which is why Blair. Okay, let me kind of give their personality types because I think that's gonna help you visualize kind of what I'm seeing in their characters. Right, Blair is kind of like the token nice girl. Like she's like the girl who's like, guys, let's all try and be friends. Let's all, get together and like let's not fight. Let's not argue. That's her, right? And then you have Mitch. He doesn't really have a personality. Mitch is just kind of like there, honestly. Out of all the characters, to me, he has like the least amount of personality, honestly. He's just kind of like there. He makes a few incelly remarks later. We'll get into it later, but it's just he's like barely a character. Then there's Adam, and he's like stereotypical like jock douchebag type. Jess. And Jess is like your typical like quote quote slutty blonde. Like the one who's like the party girl who likes to get drunk, and they kind of paint her as like the whore of the group. And then there's Ken, and he's like the designated fat friend. He's the friend that's like, he's funny, he's hilarious, he cracks all the jokes, but he does them to keep from being the butt of the joke because he's the fat friend. And then we have Val, who's just kind of like the bougie, kind of uptight, bookish girl. That's her. But we'll get more into Val a little later. So that's them. So like I said, Mitch says that it's the anniversary of Laura's death. And he sends her a link to a forum that's talking about answering messages from the dead and how you shouldn't do it. And so now I'm like, okay, Mitch, what's going on with you? Why are you being strange? Because you both are getting random messages from Laura, and now you're sending Laura forums about getting messages from dead people. What? Are you part of this? Are you the ghost? Are you pretending to be Laura? See, that's where my mind immediately went. I'm like, okay, is Mitch pretending to be Laura? Is that what's happening? Because if that's what's happening, that's weird. And why? So, we'll get into that a little later. After he sends her the forum link, in the forum, there's like a... if you've ever seen a forum before, people can leave like notes. One of the notes said that there was a teacher who got a text from her dead husband and then killed herself the next week in the parking lot of the school. Now, of course, Blair still thinks that Mitch is joking and messages Laura's account basically saying that she's going to report him, which, the account doesn't respond to because at this point, we don't know if this is Mitch pretending to be Laura. We don't know if this is Laura's ghost. We don't know what's going on. So Blair then Googles how to report a dead person's Facebook, right? And then somehow she ends up on the same forum that Mitch sent her. And this is not the only time that happens. She ends up back on that forum like multiple times on accident. I don't know why. I don't know how, because they don't really explain it. But she ends up back at that forum like more than once. So after that, she starts working on reporting the account. And at that point, I noticed that because in order to report the account, she had to type in Laura's email address. And I noticed that Blair knew Laura's email address by heart. So immediately I was like, okay, they must have been close. They must have been like really close. Because I don't know too many people that just know somebody's email address by heart like that. And so when she's trying to send a report, she gets an error message and all the information that she put in gets changed to I got her, I got her, I got her in all caps. And so she's trying to delete it, but it's taking too long. And so she tells Mitch that it's not working and that now she thinks something is really wrong. So Mitch is just like, you should just unfriend Blair, which the movie's called Unfriended. I know they don't know the title of the movie, but how you gonna unfriend whatever? So he tells her to unfriend Laura. So she does it. Well, actually, no. She tries to unfriend Laura and it doesn't work because the unfriend button is blocked off. So she can't do it. So she starts like panicking. And so Mitch is like, listen, just refresh your page. And so she refreshes the page, hits unfriend, and she unfriends Laura. Cool. Now, if you're me, you know that everything's going to go left because this movie's called Unfriended. So we know at this point things are going to go left, okay? All right? So, after that, she briefly goes back to the call. Blair does. She goes back to the call. And then she gets another Facebook message from Laura saying, you shouldn't have done that, Blair. See, now this is the point where I leave my home. Because, no. This is the point where I leave my home. You not about to get me like that. Because how'd you know I did that? How you know when you supposed to be dead? No, absolutely not. So, after that, she types in the box, what do you want? But before she hits send, Laura says, I want your help. Now, note, this means that whatever this entity is can see everything that Blair is typing before she even sends it. So this is not just like a direct message thing. It is very much, I'm in your computer. So that's what's happening. After that, Blair then says that, asks the Laura Facebook account, like, is this Val? And this is where we're getting into Val. She then texts Mitch and asks Mitch if he's talked to Val all day. And of course he says no. And Blair decides to add her to the call. And at this point, we kind of realize that most of the group don't really like Val. They're just like, the only person that likes Val is Val. And you kind of get the energy that Val is like kind of like the snooty, bookish, like kind of thinks she's better than everyone kind of person. That's the energy I get from her. And then on Jess's Facebook page, a photo collage called Val Gets Shit Face gets posted on Jess's page. And Val starts freaking out because it's all these pictures of her like ridiculously drunk, like laying all in the floor, throwing up everywhere. Like these are really like real bad pictures. And so Jess says she didn't post them. And then Jess and Val start arguing. And I mean arguing. They start threatening to hit each other. They was about to scrap. I ain't never seen somebody say they was going to beat somebody up through Skype. I ain't never seen such. But they said they was going to do it. So after they start arguing, Jess says that she can't delete the photos. And then when she finally does end up deleting them, Adam's page posts the collage. So now we have an issue. Now we have a problem. Because now I'm like, okay, these random pictures are floating around. Y'all are getting messages from dead people. You haven't told any of your friends that you got a weird message from Laura except for Mitch. And Mitch hasn't said anything about getting messages from Laura to y'all friends. Something's wrong. So after that, a message comes in at the bottom of the screen that says like, you deserved it. Like Jess's messages say like, you deserved it, bitch. Like to Val. And then Val's like, oh, are you serious? And da-da-da-da. And then Val's messages come up and it says, oh, you fucked the whole football team. Which Val didn't type either. So they're like, okay, well, what's going on? Because if you're not typing and I'm not typing, then who's typing, right? And so Blair's messages come in and Blair's message says, I'm with Jess. And of course, she didn't type it. So now they're going back and forth. We're like, well, who's typing? And then it's revealed that the random person, Billy227, is the one typing. So now I'm like, okay, this random has full control over our computers. Immediately deleting everything. Like at this point, I would have threw my computer in the trash. Because if y'all know nothing about hackers, when it gets to that point where they have full control over your laptop, you might as well just throw your computer away. Throw it away. So after that point, they're all discussing, like, who is this guy? Like, what is this? And then Billy 227 says, guess who? And then Blair figures out that Billy 227 is from Laura's Skype account. Now, once again, if this was me, I'd be out of there, but this ain't me. So, everyone is in, like, disbelief. They're like, no, that's not. Are you serious, Laura? Seriously? And Jess makes a remark that, like, oh, maybe it's Laura's brother, because Laura's brother was a weirdo, apparently. Which I'm going to come back to later. Because the way they handle Laura's death in this movie is very specific. And I like it. And when we get into the tidbits later, Val basically starts throwing insults at Billy. They be like, you know what, forget you. I'll come over there and I'll, blow the trash out your ears. Very, like, not good insults. But, it's like 2014. They're not going to give any good insults. And so, while Val is, like, trash talking Billy then says, oh, I'd love it, but you wouldn't like it here. And I'm like, that's Laura, and she ain't happy. That's Laura, and she ain't happy. So after that, Mitch basically makes everyone raise their hand to basically prove that they aren't typing. And then Billy types, who is doing this? Because Billy clearly wants them to put it together that Billy is Laura. Just know, for future reference, when Laura's typing in the Skype call, I'm going to say Billy. They're the same person, so don't get confused. It's fine. After that, Billy says, don't hang up. And then Billy sends something to Val that immediately makes her, like, go off the hinge. Like, she's pissed. To which Billy just sends, like, a smiley face emoji. And Val says that she's going to call the police. Now, no. What are you calling the police for? What is your end goal? How you going to arrest somebody and you don't know who they are? You don't have no information. You just like, this person on the internet's bullying me. And you don't know where they are. You don't know who they are. And they have full control over your computers. What was your thought process? But whatever. Once again, she calls the cops, right? Billy tells her, don't do it. And Val hangs up the call. Now remember, Billy said don't hang up. That's the one rule, you can't hang up. Val hung up, so we know what Val gonna be. So Val hangs up the call. But then before she leaves, she tells Ken, who's like the fat friend, but he's like a techie. She tells Ken, if she finds out it's him, she's gonna burn him alive. I say, that made me say, God dang. I'm like, sheesh. That's messed up. So, after that, when Val leaves, Jess starts talking shit. And Jess is like, oh, Val deserves it because she thinks she's better than everyone. And she makes fun of a bunch of people at school. And now she done picked on the wrong girl. And now she's scared. Now, see, my issue is, when Val was here, you wasn't saying all that. And the second she left, you had a lot to say. I'm not a fan of that. If you thought that, you should have said that while she was there. Now, don't get me wrong, Jess wasn't no punk, because when they was arguing, she was threatening to beat people up and such. But my thing is, if you felt that way, you should have said it when she was there. Don't wait till she leave and be like, oh, she deserved it. Like, That's just not my thing. So, after that, they basically all decide to hang up again. But before they do, Blair gets an email from Billy saying Val plays the game. Blair pretty much tells the whole group, like, Billy just sent me this link in my email. And the email is a link to an Instagram. And of course, like, Billy has it set up to where she can't forward it, right? So she forces Blair to, like, share her screen so everyone can see what she sees, right? And so when they open a link, it's a photo of a chat between Val and Laura. And I'm going to say verbatim what the post says. So here's what it says. Laura says, hey, it's Laura Burns. If you posted the video, please take it down. Please, I'm sorry I've been mean to you. And Val says, here's an idea. Why don't you kill yourself? LOL. One thing I don't play about is suicide and people's mental health. Now, I know the full story, so I know what it is. But my thing is, how dare you go out your way and you see somebody begging to you for forgiveness and you say, why don't you go kill yourself? I'm sorry. Heinous. Hell is hot. Hell is very hot. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not a fan of that. Like I said, they see the photo, and Adam is immediately disgusted by Val's message, as he should be, because how dare you? But then Ken reveals that not only did he think that Laura was a terrible person and that she was a bully, he feels like she deserves exactly what she got from that video. Now, here's how I feel about that situation. I get when somebody does you wrong. I understand it being hard for you to feel bad for them. I do get that. But I never, especially when it's like a bullying situation or something like that, suicide is one of those things where I'm like, I don't wish that on nobody. I never want to wish death on someone. And so for me, I have to think about if I was in that situation, I just wouldn't be able to say that. To be able to say, like, you deserved everything that happened to you in that video. I don't know. I'm not that kind of person. It would be really hard for me to say that and sit in it and not feel something. But maybe that's just me. So after Ken says what he says, Blair messages Mitch and says, like, I don't feel like Ken should be saying that stuff. And Mitch says he's not wrong. So now we're under the consensus of, oh, people didn't really like Laura either. Okay, good to know. We'll need this for the future. So he then sends her a link, and it's a video of Laura bashing everyone for laughing at the video. In which Blair remarks, you didn't know her like I did. And that she was dealing with stuff. And she ends up telling Mitch that it was just family stuff. But because we can see what she's typing, we see that she was actually about to reveal that Laura had some sort of issues with her uncle. I don't know if it was like physical abuse or maybe even sexual abuse. I don't know because she doesn't type it out. But all we know is Laura had some sort of issue with her uncle. Okay? So, after that, it's very clear that Laura and Blair have known each other since they were kids. Because how else would she know the thing about the uncle and the email address? They've known each other since they were children. Because even when she, a little later in the movie, goes down her, like, Facebook memories of her and Laura together, like, there's baby pictures of them together. Like, they've been together for a really long time. So after that, Blair kind of tells Mitch that she doesn't want to be in a call anymore. She wants to hang up. But then she gets a message from Laura on Facebook saying, if you hang up, all your friends are going to die. Now, Blair seems to think that it's Mitch for whatever reason. I don't know why or what possessed her to think that Laura saying that would make that Mitch. I don't know, but whatever. So after that, they start seeing Val getting a bunch of hate on the Instagram post. And then Val joins the call. And she's just sitting in her laundry room with an open container of bleach. Now, note, when you first look at it, it looks like it's just frozen. And you're like, okay, the camera must not be working, like she's frozen. But you can hear the dog barking in the background. And so I'm like, okay, that's still kind of normal, I guess. But if you can hear the dog, how come you wouldn't be able to hear Val? Because Val's not talking. And then Billy types in the bottom, Val Romel, kill yourself. So everybody notices this, and Blair decides that she's just gonna call her, right? And so they notice that Val's mirror in the back is like all broken. And so once again, they think that the camera is on her computer is frozen. But when they call her phone, they see her phone vibrating across the table. So if you've ever set your phone flat on a table and it's been in vibrate, you know how if it'll vibrate hard enough, it'll start moving across the table. They saw that. Which means her camera's not frozen. She is. And then all of a sudden, you hear a little scream and her computer is on the ground. And then remember, she called the police, right? So the police come and they bust in, right? Blair and them, they're all still on the computer. And they're like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, we gotta hear it. And so first they think they hear 10:35, right? Which Blair Googles, and that just basically is like a time check. And then they think that the cop says 5150, which is saying like a mental case. And then Blair is like, oh, Val used to have seizures. Yeah, she told me about how she used to have seizures really bad. And then everybody else was like, I've never seen Val have a seizure. Like, what are you talking about? And then after that, they hear, oh, it's a 10:55, which means it's a suicide. Now, there was an open container of bleach. Suicide. What you think she did with it? After that, the camera flashes and they get like a brief glimpse of Val's body, but for her, screen turns black, right? And then Billy messages Blair and says that they each have a dirty little secret and that they all need to be exposed. Now, no, each member of the friend group also got an email. So they all had an email like that. But, none of the other ones said what their email said. Blair accepts her files that Billy is sending to them. The file is a picture of Adam and Blair laying in the bed together with the captions, Adam, not your boyfriend. And she gets another one too. So now we're under the impression of, oh, did Adam and Blair have sex? And if that's the case, that means Blair's not a virgin. And that also means she had sex with her boyfriend's best friend. There's a lot of layers to this. It's going to come back. Just hold on. So after that, Billy says, tonight, we're going to play a game. So they all decide to try and mute their microphones. But Billy says, nice try. Literally says nice try. And unmutes all their mics. Then Billy asks if they're ready to play a game. Now Ken, because he's the techie one, he tries to get everyone to download this software to try and stop Billy, because he thinks Billy is like a troll, like a hacker, right? And Billy says, you have 1 minute to stop this, and puts them on a timer. And so they're scrambling around. They're like, oh God, oh God, oh God. So eventually, after everybody finishes downloading and doing their thing or whatever, Billy disappears. And then Blair starts texting Mitch saying she's glad that this isn't real. Like, she's glad that isn't really Laura. But then Mitch says, how do you know it's not? And I'm like, Mitch is acting so weird. Is he Laura? I'm like, Mitch is acting so strange for no reason. So after that, Blair says, like, stop trying to freak me out. And, like, Mitch says, or what? And then Blair's like, oh, I'm going to get my dad to beat you up. And then Mitch is like, your dad's not home. And once again, Mitch being weird. And so Blair is like, how do you know that? And then Mitch is like, because he's out drinking with my dad. And I'm like, who? Okay. But still, why you being weird, though? Because you acting weird, Slim. So, after that, Mitch sends her a link. And it's a R.I.P. Laura Burns page. Like a memorial page. And And he says she has more friends now than she ever did before. And I'm gonna talk about that. So Blair starts going through all her and Laura's memories on Facebook. And while that's happening, Adam is on the phone with the police because they just saw Val die. So Adam's calling the police, right? And so the operator says, "Are they safe?" And Adam says, "Yes." And then the operator says, "Even Ken, don't hang up." And now I'm like, oh, you can't call for help. Y'all is trapped. Y'all are trapped. That's it. Pack it up. Y'all are trapped. So, a new person comes in. And it looks like whatever angle they're filming from, it looks like they're under like a laundry basket or something, right? And so initially it clearly looks like we're in like somebody's room or something, right? And so you see this laundry basket, and then Ken like gets up. We don't know exactly where he's going. Ken gets up, and you see Ken in the new cam. And so now we're like, oh no, someone's in his room with him. So Ken eventually finds the little area where he seems to be being filmed, and then he freezes. And then the entire call crashes. Now, like I said, throw the computer in the trash and leave. I would have left home. I'm so serious. I would have left at this point. After that, Billy puts in the messages, "I told Ken not to hang up." And so Blair tries calling the group, but instead she only gets Ken. And he's frozen for a second, and then he screams and his screen turns black. And then everyone in the group comes back in. And then it shows Ken shoving his hand in his blender and then breaking the glass and putting his neck in the blades. And then his video finally hangs up. So now we got 2 people dead. 4 people left. So, after the video finally hangs up, Adam starts to hear banging at his house. And he starts walking around the house holding his laptop, right? And he starts calling out, "Who's here? Who's here?" And he's got a gun. Like, he's trying to shoot it. I don't know why people think they can shoot ghosts, but he's trying to shoot it. So then his lights go out. And Billy messages Adam, "Sit down and shut up." And Adam says, "What do you want from me?" And Billy says, "I want to take out the trash." Billy says, "Do you remember the video?" And the Laura Barnes Kill Yourself video starts playing automatically. And it's like popping up all over Blair's screen, right? And she can't close it. And so as we're watching the video, we see more of the video that we didn't see. And it shows Laura passed out drunk. And she has boo-booed all over herself. Like, there's poop everywhere. And so she's just laying on the ground, and she kind of like puts her hand over her mouth, like, "Don't tell anyone," like that. And so Billy says, "You're all terrible people." And then Blair messages Laura on Facebook and said they had nothing to do with the video. In which Laura then sends a bunch of photos of anonymous YouTube comments that the group sent. Basically meaning they left comments under like fake names. After that, they were basically telling like Laura to kill herself. Like they were like making a joke of it. And Blair says, "We didn't mean it, and everyone was posting, so we did too, and we were just joking, and we made a mistake, but we're good people." And then Laura responds, "Are you? Let's find out." And so Billy says, "Let's play a game. A game where the loser dies." And then she kind of plays with Adam, and she's like, "Let me turn them lights on for you, Adam." So she turns his lights back on. And then Billy says, "We're going to play Never Have I Ever. However, the loser dies." Now, if you don't know how Never Have I Ever works, basically you hold up 5 fingers, And if you've done the thing that they say, you have to put a finger down. And whoever puts all 5 fingers down first loses. And then you keep doing that until there's one person left. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and list off what happens, because I'm not really going, because there's a lot of yelling and screaming in this part. So I'm just going to list out the questions and who did what. So the first one was, never have I ever started a rumor that Blair has an eating disorder. Leave a comment down below before I say it who you think did this out of all the friends. Alright. The person who did this was Jess. And Jess actually lied and said that Val did it. Next one. Never have I ever crashed Jess's mom's car. Leave a comment. This was Blair. Blair did this because she was drunk and driving Jess's mom's car. And Jess got blamed for it, which of course she did, because why would your friend be driving your mama's car? Which, by the way, don't ever let your friends drive your car unless you're like good and grown. Please. That just sounds dangerous. Here's the next one. Never have I ever made out with Laura Barnes. This was Mitch. Mitch actually made out with Laura while he was with Blair. Next one. Never have I ever sold out Adam to the cops for selling weed. This was Mitch again. And we find out that he snitched on Mitch because he didn't want to end up going in jail with him, because he said that he was either going to be both of them or one of them. So he was like, you going to take the fall, fam. After that, it was, never have I ever stole $800 from Adam. This one was Jess. And she didn't really have an explanation. She just needed $800 and she knew that Adam had money, so she took it. Next one. Now note, the next couple is going to get spicy. This one says, never have I ever offered to trade Jess's life for mine. And this was Adam. Adam was basically, so I think what happened was they don't really go into super hard detail about this one. But basically, I guess Blair, Adam, and Mitch were doing something like drug related, and in order for them not to be caught or whatever, Adam offered to give them Jess so that Blair, Adam, and Mitch could live, which is so fucked up. I don't have to explain. He offered somebody's life for his own. Boom, that's enough explanation. Next one. Now note, at this point Adam is fed up. So these next couple ones are never have I ever's that he created. Adam says, never have I ever had sex. Now remember, Blair is supposed to be a virgin. But lo and behold, guess who's not a virgin? And not only is Blair not a virgin, she had sex with Adam. Which was Adam's next one. Never have I ever fucked my boyfriend's best friend. Those were his exact words. Those aren't my words, those are his. Once again, this was Blair. And she says it was an accident because she was drunk. But as someone who's been drunk, ain't that much drunk in the world. I ain't never been so drunk to where you don't know what's going on. Ain't that much drunk in the world. She did that because she wanted to. Period. She did that because she wanted to. She just didn't think she was going to get caught. So now Mitch is fed up because he's like, my girlfriend's cheating on me and da-da-da. Now, no, at this point, Mitch says some really nasty things to Blair. He's like, start calling her a slut and like all these really awful things, like really terrible things to her. Like, terrible. And so these next couple ones are ones that Mitch says. And Mitch says, never have I ever roofied Ashley Dane. Now, Ashley Dane is like this random girl they go to school with. She's not important in any way, shape, or form. But basically, Mitch is implying that Adam raped this girl. And then Mitch says, never have I ever forced Ashley Dane to get an abortion. which again was Adam, which means that he allegedly raped this girl and then got her pregnant and made her get an abortion. So as you can imagine, that's a lot. And at this point, Mitch is completely fed up. And they're like arguing and crying and screaming while all this is happening. So after this, Billy uploads Adam and Blair's sex tape on YouTube and sends it to all of them, right? And then Billy asked, who's ready for a bonus round? Right? And so Adam starts screaming with his gun. And he's like, no, I'm not scared of you. I will kill you. Like, he's like waving around. Clearly, he's terrified, but he's trying really hard to give off like the tough guy act. And then Adam and Blair get something through their printer. And basically, they're not allowed to say what it is. Period. They cannot say what it is. And so Mitch is like, listen, you have 1 minute. You need to tell me exactly what happened. No more secrets. Because he's an incel and he's being weird now. And so Blair admits to Mitch that her and Adam had sex one other time. And so he's like being weird. And Mitch is like, did he touch you down there? Like, once again, he's being weird. And so then Mitch goes off and says, I want to see the paper. And then Blair's like, no, listen, like, I can't show you the paper. Like, please, like, I don't want to do that. And Mitch is like, if you don't show me the paper, I'ma walk. I'ma leave. And Billy says, if Mitch leaves, he loses. Which basically means if Mitch leaves, he dies. So then Blair shows the paper. And Adam turns the gun on himself and shoots himself in the face. And the crazy part is the only thing that was on the paper that says, if you show this paper, Adam will die. And then Adam's paper said, if you show this paper, Blair will die. So now Adam's dead. We got 3 left. The only people left now are Jess, Mitch, and Blair. And so after that, Billy says, hands up. And they specifically have a question for Jess. Never have I ever defaced Laura Barnes's grave. And then at that point, Jess just hears banging in her house. So she starts losing it. She's like, oh my God, like she's screaming, crying. And they're just like, run, just run, just run. So she's running and she runs like, I'm guessing into like her bathroom and she shuts the door. And so Blair starts trying to use chat roulette because remember, they can't call the police on their phones. So she goes on chat roulette and tries to find someone to get them some help. Now, no, I think this is a really stupid idea because like why chat roulette? Like the odds of you finding somebody that will actually help you are like slim, but whatever. So she's using chat roulette to basically to try and get somebody to call the police. And eventually she finds someone. And then by the time Blair gets back in the call, Billy puts goodbye Jess in the text. And then Blair gets a separate call from Jess. And she sees Jess with a curling iron. Note, the curling iron is on and hot, shoved down her throat. And then Blair gets a notification from Jess's Facebook. And it's a picture of Jess with the curling iron down her throat with the caption, looks like she finally shut the fuck up. I just want to say, Laura, you have a very sick sense of humor, ma'am. I don't like it. You're strange. You're strange. So then, after that, Mitch and Blair are the only ones left. And Blair and Mitch's lights go off. And then Billy asks the final question. Never have I ever posted the drunk video of Laura. And they both swear up and down it wasn't them. And then Laura messages Blair personally and tells her that she knows that she wouldn't have done this. And then Laura asks, why is Blair protecting him? And don't you want this to be over? And at first, Blair says that he didn't do anything. But then she erases it and says it was him. And then Mitch stabs himself in the eye with a knife. Now, note this effect looked really not good, but also it's 2014 and they're making a horror movie over Skype. So I'm assuming it would be hard to like make that kind of after effect look good, but like it looked so bad I had to say something. So after that, Blair says, not Blair, Laura says, "Thanks, Blair. That must have been hard. So just one more thing." And before that, a countdown starts. And Blair's like crying and screaming. She's like, "No, like, don't you remember our moments together? Like all the fun we had?" And she's like scrolling through their Facebook memories and stuff. And Billy says, aka Laura, Billy says, "How could I forget?" And Blair says she's so sorry that they drifted apart. But then Billy says, "Drifted apart? I don't remember it happening like that." And then we see the video, the kill yourself video. And we see, after we see Laura laying on the ground, you know, after she pooped herself, the camera turns and it's Blair. And she's laughing, saying, "I got her. Remember when I said it was going to come back?" She said, "I got her." Just like them texts said when she tried to put in for the hack thing. And then Laura says that what she's done will live here forever. Because Laura then posts the video on her Facebook page. And she tells Blair that she wishes that she could forgive her. And then Billy hangs up, shuts Blair's laptop, and kills her. And that is Unfriended. Now, let's get into the tidbits. So basically, what did I think about this movie? Honestly, the acting, I don't know. It's just, here's my opinion. If you're going to do something like this, if you're going to make a movie that's based so much on character interaction, you have to give the characters chemistry. And in my opinion, these characters did not have chemistry. Like, there was no point in this movie where I felt like these were genuine friends. Because they were at each other's throats the whole time. Now, don't get me wrong. There are friend groups full of people that don't like each other. They do exist, believe it or not. It's actually fairly common. But this movie gave me no iteration that these people cared about each other at all. And so when the betrayals happened, like, yes, I was surprised, but like, none of it seemed out of character because all of these characters, it was clear they didn't really fool with each other. Another thing I wanted to bring up was how they handle Laura's suicide. Because I think it's very, honestly, very strikingly accurate in that no one really cared about... So, like, as we know, Laura was like a bully, I guess. She was like not a great person. She was like mean, and apparently she was like... She sucked, basically, was Ken's words. And so it comes into play like, okay, just because someone was like maybe not the greatest person in their life, do they not deserve to be mourned? Do they not deserve to be missed? Do they deserve to be hurt like that because they hurt others? And here's the thing, I think everything is a spectrum. I don't think there's necessarily a black and white answer. But in this case, I'm not going to sit here and condone them posting under that embarrassing video of her to kill herself. I'm not going to condone that. Because I don't care what somebody does to you, to say to someone to go kill themselves is a step beyond the boundary that you can't come back from. Once you wish death on somebody, that's like beyond anything you could take back. Which is why I'm like, no, I'm not on y'all's side for this. And the fact that they played it like a joke, like it was a mistake. We were just joking. Like everyone was doing it. Like, was her life so meaningless to you that you were willing to joke about her losing it? And then when she did die, did you really care? Because my thing is, and this is why the Blair thing, like Blair being the one who made the video, when I first watched this movie back when I was 14, so this was a while ago, I was genuinely shocked because there were really no indications that she did this. But when you look at the video, it's the fact that she posted it that made it bad. Because I'm sure there's a lot of groups of friends that have like embarrassing videos of their friends on their phones and stuff like that. But the fact that she posted it and then said kill herself and then proceeded to leave an anonymous comment on her own video telling her to kill herself again. Like, I'm just like, you're sick. Blair, you're sick. And she was playing the nice girl act. And that's what I don't like. See, if you've ever met someone who's being like, and this is more, I've noticed this more in men, but women can do it too. Where I call it the nice guy act. Where someone tries overtly to like prove they're like a good person and like an upstanding person. And they do it to the detriment of themselves. Because there's a difference between being a good person and trying to be a good person. There's a difference between being a nice guy and acting like a nice guy. Like, there's a difference. And she's one of those people who are acting that way. But she wasn't that way. Because when it came down to her life or Mitch's, she chose herself. Lied on him. Lied through her teeth the entire time. And sat there and spoke with me. She believed her lie so much that she never broke character. To the point where you almost believe that she like forgot that she did it. I don't know. It's just, that's another one of my gripes with this. The characters are inconsistent. And I mean that by Mitch's like weird transition into like calling her like a slut and stuff at the end didn't really make sense to me. And Blair, I get why they made Blair like, oh, she made the video. I get why they did that. I really do. But what I don't get is her playing the nice guy act. I think maybe what it was is she felt guilty about all this, and because of that, she's overcompensating for the guilt. I think that's what it was. But the fact of the matter is she didn't really change. Because when it came down to her or Mitch's life, even though she proclaimed she loved Mitch so much to the point that she killed Adam, she still chose herself because that's what matters. But let's get back into how they handled Laura's death. I like it, and the reason why I like it is because her death was kind of treated like a social media event. And by that I mean, like Mitch says, she had more friends in death than she's ever had in real life. Like, it's clear that Laura was not this like super popular person. Like, it's clear that she didn't have many friends, and because of that, her death was seen at... Have you ever seen somebody, and this happens a lot, you'll see someone that's like not super well known, and then when they die, like all of a sudden everything they've ever touched blows up. It's like that. Like, even in her like news article, they were calling her like the darling of Fresno, California. Like, all this like hyping her up to this almost omnipotent status Whereas it's all superficial. Because when it came down to when she was holding the gun in her hand, nobody helped her. Nobody stopped her. And that is the sad truth of when it comes to suicide. Because a lot of people will say they know what they want to do in that situation and they really don't. And when it came down to it, nobody helped her. And a lot of people thought she deserved it because it was clear that there's a lot of people, including in that friend group, who felt like she deserved what happened to her. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest, especially in this situation, there's nothing you can tell me where I feel like she deserved to be publicly humiliated to tens of thousands of people and then kill herself, have all of this videotaped, and people just watching it. And y'all are sitting there pretending to care. And the only person that seems genuinely invested in her was Blair. And Blair's the one who ruined her life. So what was really the point? What was the point? That's just how I feel about it. I don't know. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Please leave a comment below about what you do in this situation and how you feel about the twist of Blair being the secret videographer of the entire thing. Please leave a comment below and make sure to like and subscribe. Oh, and by the way, I give the movie a 5 out of 10. Bye!